You know, I've gotten used to a lot in regards of leadership failures, as we just recently uncovered in depth on Israel's recent security failures. The same for humans being humans and deciding in their own interest. But the recent weeks have knocked the bottom off the barrel, as is a German saying. Good day, dear audience. In the recent weeks, three messages have not shaken the newsfare and media coverage, yet are disproportionately to their perception so incremental that we want to address them in today's special episode on underestimated noticeable moments in history. First, it was recently revealed that the US Secretary of Defense underwent critical medical treatment. Somehow, what this ended up to become was news stories like the US were literally in a moment's notice without a functioning chain of command, with not only his deputy not ending her vacation abroad, but the White House just learned of the whole ordeal days later allegedly. I don't know what your background is and what this is saying to you in detail, but please believe your average recon analyst is grunt. This is not something which should be happening, well, actually, that is why it didn't. As probably every military, there are regarding permanent readiness officers in the DoD and White House, keeping track of their command staff at any time, with updates with changes each time at least. What this rather displays is a lack of baseline expertise in the news agencies, as Mr. Ryan Macbeth recently elaborated on, that when looking up veteran recruiters and employees of EG Times etc., as you see displayed, we range at a solid below 1% across the board. What is so too often happening with media coverage of military concerns. While the US certainly has lost some respect and trust around the world, as we from an analytical point of view see a clear connection between things like
Putin, listen to me. I have a very important message to you. The message is, and the president of China,
and this in soft power and perception of willingness to use hard power. With the overall will and capability of engagement of the country which shepherded global and intercepted trade for most of all our lifetimes residing, it seems to be losing trust and respect. Analysts like us in private and more well known like Peter Zion, who writes whole books on no matter, have long been warning how fragile or so complacent global supply chains are. COVID has shown that, and the warned rogue attacks on commercial shipping have not only already started, but are ongoing as we speak with the Red Sea crisis, which results in trade shipping detours of weeks, while we did not yet look up, for example, shipping insurance changes. See Real Life Lore's news, How Yemen is Wrecking the Global Economy video for a detailed take on the numbers. Please subscribe to the channel to not miss our coming take on the West's own crises, having a take on civilizational struggles, followed up by takes on accelerationism, discussing the former with historian Dr. David Engels, Chair of Roman History at the University of Brussels. To come to part 2, again, technically a little news bulletin to note, but to be forgotten quite soon. The message itself again, that soldiers start to steal anything when they are culturally incentivized, is nothing new. See Perum's take on corruption in the Russian armed force for example, as there are for example strong implications to believe that the offensive on Kiev might have stalled as well, because its soldiers, not thinking that they were going into combat, a war would start, trading off hundreds of thousands of liters of fuel while they exercises in Belarus. Well, this incident also involves soldiers seeking personal benefits and fuel. Yet, while the formerly mentioned Russian example hindered tactical, operational, and then, yes, may have affected strategic outcomes, the Chinese straight away took it to the strategic level. This as in regards of the Chinese fight against corruption, it has surfaced that Chinese President Xi seems to still have lots of work ahead. 2024 Chinese military white paper mentioning corruption 3 times and, now hold your horses, examples coming up of strategic missiles having the fuel replaced with water. Because someone on station liked the fact to have some free smokeless fuel for his provision upgrades. Which is a little condescending, yet this is what we have to take from this news and where we have our most underestimated moment in history. This little, quite overlookable and quite amusing story tells us that China is nowhere near being able to pull off a serious invasion of Taiwan for the coming years. The surface picture of morale and jealousy, I admit, makes our already-written Chinese human waves attacks on Taiwanese shores thought experiment quite unlikely. Please let us know in the comments if you still would like to see it and have us move it up on the release schedule. Summarizing, China already still had much homework to do, are still implementing and exercising joint staffs, and obviously has still far more on its plate in these regards, as was obvious until recently. Clarification in conclusion. It is entirely possible that the incident in question was taken out of context, as only quotes were found, such as someone obtaining fuel from a material chamber, and the story itself may not have been as widespread as alleged, possibly like also some, but not a large portion of the missile silo hatches being defective. The media simply have too many incentives, necessities for drama. Nevertheless, the problem of corruption persists and is likely to keep the Chinese occupied for the years to come. Would like to tell you so sleep easier, yet the embarrassment faced by China, as well as the West's undecisiveness, might not make wars and conflict less, but more likely. This as for example the US seems to be in strategic posture struggles to even react to ever-spreading conflicts, and the recent experiences have shown that delicate matters might again be very poorly handled when the event comes as so often so surprising and especially emotionally loaded, or at least allowed to escalate and commit atrocities far longer than we got used to it. 3. Russian-Ukrainian War. Modern wars have become too costly. As partly elaborated in our Why the Ukrainian Counteroffensive of 2023 Will Fail video, modern armies are taking many lessons from this conflict, of which one is how deadly the modern battlefield has become. 3.1 Russian situation. According to Vladimir Putin's own admissions, which might be widely understated as no site still yet is revealing data, Russia suffered losses of 90% of the first 360k troops initially deployed to Ukraine, starting its invasion in February 2022. It mustered another 430,000 replacements so far and might be sweeping in more, yet it already faces dire demographic challenges many might say are impossible to overcome, exacerbating its inevitable decline. Other sources put the number of Russian losses up to 500k so far, by the way, while we will be displaying regarding numbers provided by Comrade Kommissar Binkov in this latest installment, Perun, and Covered Cabal will feature in the future again. 3.2 Ukrainian situation. These losses, yet while Ukraine's Crimean Tatar Defense Minister Zaluzhny recently admitted a stalemate and is momently being tried to be forced to resign, that his country would little need a technological advantage similar to what the invention of gunpowder used to be to its time, while he further admitted that he also underestimated the Russian willingness to take such massive casualties as in Bakhmut and Vuhledar. This while Ukrainian losses are also being placed somewhere between 200 and 380k, and as we already showed, the disparity in population sizes clearly is to the Russians' advantage, while some sources say Ukraine has already mobilized quite massively, with renewed calls to deepen this even further. 3.T Small Unit Tactics, FATIT, Rescue Chain. As we and many other more renowned colleagues have already elaborated, due to the constant presence of and threat by drones and the massive use of artillery barrages to consolidate, the latter consolidation via artillery barrage and small unit tactics has become painstakingly slowly high losses grinding tactic of the time, to which we hope to be able to come back in a coming interview. From this we have the takeaway that war not only has become more slow but also costly, while of course survivability through superiority in force, equipment and protection has been a main focus so far. These recent developments also should put the rescue chain into focus of decision makers. All armies will struggle to replace their losses, therefore ensuring higher survival and ideally recovery rates of experienced personnel will be paramount when the will to volunteer stays so low and compulsory service still is off the table. While judging on Ukrainian standards, for example, the US Army could lose all its losses in recent decades within weeks in a Russo-Ukrainian-like conflict intensity, while she is still definitely more technologically capable and also capable of drowning the enemy once again in a flood of production. Nevertheless, the indications, as in recent reports of the British Armed Forces, are becoming increasingly clear that the realization has already taken hold. If a conflict of greater intensity were to break out, no Western nation would be able to avoid reintroducing conscription very soon. As always, we highly thank you for your attention and would be very curious about your thoughts. You hopefully will leave us in the comments. Stay safe and tuned for a continuously eventful 2024. This concludes my elaborations.